Welcome to Hauntales. Here's where the darkest stories come alive. I know many of you tune into these tales to drift off to sleep, so settle in, relax, and get comfortable. Before we begin tonight's story, I'd like to hear from you in the comments about where are you listening from and what time it is. I like knowing how far our stories travel. Also, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can keep finding more truly scary stories every night. For the best experience, use your headphones, close your eyes, and let every word sink deep into your mind. Now, we begin our stories for tonight. Beneath the heart of Paris, a lighthouse keeper's descent into madness, I am not a man of faith, but I found myself whispering prayers as cold water lapped against my boots in that sunless labyrinth beneath the city of light. The beam from my hard hat lamp carved a feeble path through the black waters, revealing fragments of bone and rotting cloth relics of the forgotten dead long swallowed by the earth. I was a relief lighthouse keeper, a solitary sentinel standing guard at the edge of reason, but never in my years on that lonely rock had I faced such an abyssal dread as I did in those flooded catacombs. The morning began like any other, with me reporting to the arrondissement's municipal office and receiving instructions for my assignment. But when I descended into the sprawling network of tunnels beneath the city, it became clear that this was no ordinary drainage survey. My compass spun wildly as if possessed, and every clock and watch in my bag had stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m., a detail that would have sent shivers down my spine if I were prone to such fancies. My first anomaly came when I stumbled upon a chamber unlike any other. Its walls bore intricate carvings of celestial bodies, their once pristine lines now faded and marred by time. A single word repeated in the language of the heavens, in nominandum. I recognized it from ancient manuscripts, the unnameable. In my professional capacity, I dismissed it as an idle whimsy of the long-dead tomb builders, yet a nagging unease lingered. Soon after, I encountered something that shattered my rationality. A locked room appeared on no floor plan, its heavy door adorned with symbols of protection against eldritch horrors. It opened to reveal an alcove bathed in warm light, and within it, a sight so utterly alien that it defied comprehension. An embryo floated in a glass orb, connected by a mass of pulsating tendrils to a metallic device shaped like a hand. The fingers clutched a small book bearing the same word inscribed on the chamber's walls, in nominandum. I should have fled then, but curiosity held me captive. I touched the glass and the embryo stirred, unfurling tiny wings before returning to its dormant state. The sight of it stirred something deep within me, a primal terror that resonated in my bones. I retreated, locking the door behind me, promising never to speak of what I'd seen. False relief washed over me as I resumed my survey, but soon enough, the catacombs revealed their true nature. The recurring scent of burning hair filled the air, an olfactory specter that followed me like a malevolent shadow. Every step echoed with whispers of forgotten prayers and pleas for mercy, amplified in the subterranean silence until they drowned out rational thought. Then came the discovery that reframed everything. Deep within a cavernous chamber, I found a mural depicting a celestial body being consumed by darkness. Beneath it, an inscription read, "Thus fell the star of kindness when mankind turned away." The entity was not some unspeakable evil. It was the last remnant of something good, corrupted by human cruelty. The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me reeling in shock and despair. I couldn't comprehend the enormity of my findings, nor did I want to accept them. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I heard a voice, soft, soothing, yet profoundly wrong. "Fear not, friend," it whispered in my ear, "for we are but travelers passing through this realm of shadows." Its touch sent shivers down my spine, cold and clammy as a corpse's embrace. I spun around, expecting to find some monstrous apparition, but there was nothing, only the lingering chill of its presence. I fled through the flooded tunnels, stumbling over decaying graves, sloshing through murky water filled with God knows what horrors. Every shadow seemed alive, reaching out to snatch me away into darkness. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they merged into a single cacophony of despair that echoed in the hollow chambers of my mind. As I emerged from the claustrophobic confines of the catacombs, blinking against the unaccustomed brightness of daylight, I couldn't help but feel that I'd left part of myself behind, buried deep within those sunless depths. The entity's haunting words lingered long after I returned to my lighthouse post, a chilling reminder of the cosmic horrors lurking beyond the boundaries of human understanding. My stay at the lighthouse became a tortured vigil, punctuated by sleepless nights and days haunted by phantom smells of burning hair and distant whispers. Each tick of the clock was a reminder of the uncanny hour frozen in time beneath Paris, 3:17 a.m. And every night, as I stared into the abyssal darkness of the sea, I couldn't help but wonder if somewhere out there, amidst the stars and the void, lay the answers to the mysteries that now consumed me. Ending and so, here I remain, a lighthouse keeper guarding not just ships from treacherous waters, but also my own sanity from the horrors lurking in the unfathomable depths of the unknown. As the days turn into weeks, then months, and perhaps years, I find myself drawn back to those flooded catacombs, pulled by an irresistible force that seems both repulsive and compelling. Each visit brings new revelations, each more terrifying than the last. Yet amidst the madness, one truth stands out: the entity down there is not malevolent, but merely a victim of humanity's cruelty. Trapped, forgotten, yearning for redemption. In the end, all that remains is a single image seared into my mind, the sight of that unnameable creature, forever etched in my memory like an indelible scar. A being of pure potential, corrupted by mankind's sinister desires, whispering comforting lies while clutching onto the last remnants of kindness. Is this what awaits us all, to be consumed by our own vices until nothing remains but a hollow shell echoing empty promises in the dark? If so, then I stand vigilant, not just for those sailing the seas, but for every soul lost to the abyss of cosmic horror. For even in the face of unspeakable dread, there is solace in knowing that someone, somewhere, keeps watch. I woke up to the incessant clanging of a fire alarm, the sound reverberating through the cold steel corridors of the offshore oil platform. It was pitch black and my head throbbed as I fumbled for the flashlight on my bedside table. I worked as a cryptographer on a government contract, currently stationed at this desolate place in the North Sea. Groggily, I made my way out of my room and into the hallway. The screeching alarm was almost deafening now. There wasn't any smoke, but an eerie mist seemed to be seeping from beneath each door. A chill ran down my spine as I realized something was horribly wrong. In the control room, I found the source of the issue, a small fire in one corner, quickly contained by the automatic sprinklers. But that wasn't what sent shivers up my spine. On the main screen, a recording played on loop. It was my own voice, 3 hours into the future, saying 4 words over and over again: "They won't leave me." I tried to rationalize it as some kind of prank or glitch, but deep down, I knew something far more sinister was at play. As if to confirm my fears, I discovered that someone had been meticulously removing pages from every book on site, leaving behind only blank covers. The layout of the building no longer matched the floor plan I'd memorized. Doors led to different rooms, stairs twisted back on themselves, and corridors seemed to stretch on for miles. My mind started playing tricks on me. Shadows moved in the corners of my eyes, whispers echoed down the halls, and every creak of the aging structure felt like a threat. Then, in the heart of this labyrinthine nightmare, I found a room filled with monitors displaying surveillance footage from all around the platform. And there on every screen was the same thing: myself, asleep in my bed, unaware of the horrors unfolding. Suddenly all the screens flickered and went static except for one. It showed an interior room I'd never seen before. Inside sat a figure hunched over a desk, methodically tearing out page after page from a book. Its face was obscured by shadows, yet there was something hauntingly familiar about its posture, its movements. Suddenly it looked up and stared directly into the camera. Despite the lack of detail, I felt a palpable sense of malevolence emanating from the screen. Then, just as quickly, it returned to its task, leaving me standing alone in the dimly lit control room, trembling with fear. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I made a discovery that reframed everything I thought I understood about what was happening. The entity wasn't threatening us, it was warning us. Each action, while seemingly malevolent, was actually designed to protect. The fire, the missing pages, even the manipulation of the building's layout, they were all attempts to communicate, to warn us of an impending disaster. As I raced against time to decipher the cryptic messages, the platform suddenly lurched violently. Alarms blared louder than ever before, and red lights flashed ominously. In my desperation, I managed to crack the code just moments before everything went dark. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest as the words scrolled past. Evacuate now. The platform is unstable. You have 1 hour. The last thing I saw was that single image of the sea swallowing up the rig, a sight both terrifying and awe-inspiring in its raw power. And then there was nothing but blackness. The chalet at the edge of oblivion, I had eagerly anticipated my sojourn to the desolate ski chalet, nestled in a secluded enclave of the French Alps. My research as a historian had led me to this very location, where a harrowing disappearance occurred in 1943 and has since remained shrouded in mystery. The biting cold greets me as I step out of the hired snowcat, an ominous harbinger of the isolation that awaits me during my extended stay. The chalet looms before me, a relic of a bygone era, its architectural grandeur swallowed by the insatiable maw of time. The heavy front door groans in protest as I push it open, unleashing an unsettling mustiness that coats my throat and lungs. My footsteps echo through the vacant halls, punctuated only by the distant melody of a creaking support beam or the guttural growl of an ancient heating system. I quickly settle into my new surroundings, unloading my belongings and setting up my workspace in what was once the library. The room is lined with moth-eaten tomes and brittle newspapers that crinkle under my touch, their contents whispering tales of wartime atrocities and forgotten lore. As I delve into my research, I stumble upon an article detailing the unexplained disappearance of a local family during World War II. The chilling account describes how they vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their possessions and a pervasive sense of dread that lingered long after their departure. My fascination peaked. I press onward in my investigation, determined to unravel the enigma that has eluded historians and investigators for decades. Little do I know, the truth awaiting me is far more horrifying than anything I could have imagined. Hours later, a soft humming sound permeates the silence, originating from an antiquated reel-to-reel tape player on a nearby table. I approach it cautiously, recognizing my own voice emanating from the archaic device. I should have never come here, I say, my disembodied words echoing through the room. The recording continues, detailing events that have yet to transpire. A chill runs down my spine as I listen, unable to reconcile the inexplicable phenomenon unfolding before me. The tape clicks off abruptly, plunging me back into the deafening silence of the chalet. My mind races, struggling to comprehend the implications of what I've just experienced. I glance at my watch, noting that 3 hours have passed since I began listening to the recording, time seemingly lost in a temporal abyss. A sudden temperature drop sends shivers coursing through me, and I realize that one of the rooms has plummeted by a staggering 15 degrees C, despite there being no ventilation or discernible cold source. The frigid air pierces my skin like icy daggers, stealing away any semblance of warmth and comfort. I hastily retreat to the library, seeking solace in its familiar confines. However, upon entering, I am confronted by an eerie sight. My phone screen illuminates with a full signal call from my own number. My heart pounds within my chest as I answer the call, anticipating the worst. Yet no one responds, only silence echoes through the line, a chilling reminder of my growing isolation. In an attempt to regain control of the situation, I redouble my efforts in deciphering the cryptic documents scattered throughout the chalet. Hours pass as I meticulously sift through the aged parchment, but progress remains elusive. Just when despair threatens to consume me, I discover a series of letters hidden within a hollowed-out book. Their contents reveal a chilling truth. I am being tested, and I failed the moment I stepped foot inside this cursed abode. The missives provide a harrowing account of an otherworldly entity that resides deep within the mountains, feeding off the fear and suffering of those who dare to disturb its slumber. The entity's power waxes and wanes with the passage of time, but it remains ever vigilant, awaiting the moment when another unwitting soul stumbles into its trap. My blood runs cold as I absorb the horrifying revelation, my earlier experiences taking on new meaning in light of this knowledge. The recording, the temperature drop, and the mysterious phone call, all orchestrated by an unseen force seeking to break my spirit. As if to punctuate this sinister epiphany, a sudden gust of wind surges through the room, extinguishing the fireplace and plunging me into darkness. I fumble for a nearby candle, my trembling hands betraying my mounting terror. A single flame flickers to life, casting grotesque shadows upon the walls as I huddle beneath a heavy woolen blanket. My mind reels from the day's events, struggling to reconcile the rational world I once knew with this new reality. The entity's influence pervades every corner of the chalet, its insidious grasp tightening like an invisible noose around my neck. A profound sense of dread washes over me, a palpable presence that threatens to drown me in despair. In an effort to stave off madness, I focus on my research once more, scrutinizing the letters for any clue that might help me combat this supernatural foe. One passage in particular stands out. The key to survival lies not within defeating the creature, but in understanding its nature. I ponder these words, searching for their deeper meaning. Perhaps if I can comprehend the essence of the entity, I can find a way to coexist with it, to survive until help arrives. As if compelled by some unseen force, I venture into the heart of the chalet, descending into its darkest recesses. The air grows colder with each step, the oppressive weight of the entity's power bearing down upon me like an ancient curse. At last I reach my destination, a hidden chamber concealed behind a crumbling bookshelf. Within its confines, I discover a series of artifacts and relics that hint at the true nature of the being that haunts this place. Each item bears a striking resemblance to objects described in the letters, talismans imbued with otherworldly energies meant to protect their bearers from the entity's influence. Among them, I find a small leather-bound notebook detailing the experiences of those who previously sought refuge within these walls. The entries paint a harrowing picture of desperation and terror, chronicling the slow descent into madness as the entity's power grows ever stronger. Yet amidst the hopelessness, there is a glimmer of hope, a single entry that suggests another historian managed to escape its grasp. I cling to this fragile thread of optimism, poring over every detail in search of answers. The key to survival lies within these pages, and I am determined not to meet the same fate as those who came before me. As I read, I begin to notice a recurring theme. Each survivor spoke of an indescribable moment of clarity that allowed them to break free from the entity's grasp. This revelation sends a shiver down my spine, for I too have experienced such moments during my time at the chalet. Could it be that these fleeting instances of understanding hold the key to escaping this nightmare? And if so, how can I recapture that elusive sense of enlightenment when it seems to slip away just as quickly as it arrives? With newfound urgency, I return to my research, combing through every document and artifact for any clue that might help me trigger another moment of clarity. Time grows short, for the entity's influence is steadily encroaching upon my sanity, threatening to consume me entirely. My efforts prove fruitful when I stumble upon a series of diagrams depicting complex geometric patterns accompanied by cryptic annotations. At first glance, they appear to be little more than nonsensical scribblings, but as I study them further, a sense of familiarity takes root within me. These symbols, they are the same ones that appeared in my fleeting moments of clarity. Could it be that these diagrams hold the secret to recreating that transcendent experience at will? Armed with this newfound knowledge, I set about deciphering the intricate patterns before me. Each line and curve seems to resonate with an otherworldly energy, pulsating in time with my own heartbeat. As I work, a strange calm settles over me, as if the very act of engaging with these arcane symbols is warding off the encroaching darkness. At last, after hours of painstaking effort, the diagrams coalesce into a complete design, a stunningly beautiful array of geometric shapes and patterns that seems to beckon me towards understanding. I stare at the page, willing myself to grasp its elusive meaning. Slowly, as if awakening from a dream, the symbols begin to make sense. Each line and curve resolve into a coherent whole, revealing an intricate tapestry of knowledge that transcends mere mortal comprehension. In this moment, I understand, truly understand, the nature of the entity that haunts this place. It is a being of unfathomable power and ancient wisdom, born from the depths of time itself. Its purpose is not merely to terrorize, but to challenge those who dare to tread upon its domain, seeking to elevate them to new heights of understanding. And yet, in doing so, it risks destroying their fragile minds, trapping them within the confines of its own tortured existence. Armed with this revelation, I stand tall against the encroaching darkness, unafraid and resolute. The entity's influence no longer holds sway over me, for now I understand its true nature, and in doing so have claimed victory over the insidious force that has plagued my every waking moment since entering this cursed abode. With newfound resolve, I gather my belongings and prepare to leave the chalet behind, forever changed by my experiences within its haunted halls. As I step out into the frigid night air, a single thought echoes through my mind. I have faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Beneath the city of light, I descend into the catacombs alone, armed with only a flashlight, a map, and a drainage survey assignment, my first job since the divorce. The air is thick and dank, an oppressive weight that clings to my skin. I've always loved exploring old places, but there's something off about this one, a wrongness that seeps into my bones. The beam of my flashlight carves through the darkness, illuminating centuries-old bones stacked high on either side of me. The musty smell of decaying earth and damp fabric fills my nostrils. I shiver despite the humidity, my breath misting in front of me as I consult the map, tracing my route through the labyrinthine tunnels. A distant echo of dripping water breaks the silence, punctuated by the occasional drip closer to me, a constant reminder of the relentless flow of time and water above. A drop lands on my helmet with a soft plunk, sending a shiver down my spine. I shake it off and continue forward. As I navigate the twisting passages, I notice a faint glow emanating from up ahead. Strange, my flashlight is the only source of light I have. Perhaps there's an exit nearby or another entrance allowing natural light to filter in. But as I approach, the source of the light becomes clear, an ancient, dust-covered lamp, its flame flickering weakly. I hesitate for a moment, considering whether to trust this new development, but my curiosity gets the better of me. I pick up the lamp and continue my journey. The tunnels begin to slope downward, leading me deeper beneath the city. Water seeps in from cracks in the walls, forming puddles that grow larger with every step. Soon, I'm wading through ankle-deep water, the chill seeping into my boots and numbing my toes. A sudden splash echoes through the darkness, sending my heart racing. Rats most likely, but still I can't shake the feeling of unease that settles over me like a shroud. I resume my trek, only to be stopped short by an unexpected sight, a small, battery-operated radio submerged in the water, still playing a haunting melody. The notes seem to drift through the air, wrapping around me like tendrils of smoke, a child's lullaby sung in French. I recognize it as Au clair de la lune, a tune I haven't heard since my childhood. I shiver, though not from the cold this time. The hairs on the back of my neck stand on end as I reach down to pick up the radio, half expecting it to stop working at my touch. Instead, the music continues uninterrupted, filling the silence with its eerie cadence. My foot brushes against something soft and yielding in the water, something that definitely shouldn't be here. I direct my flashlight downward, revealing a tattered journal floating amidst the debris. Its pages are bloated and stained, but legible. As I flip through the soaked diary, I discover entries detailing events happening in real time, my real time. This can't be possible, yet there it is in black and white, descriptions of my own experiences, written by someone who seems to know exactly what I'm going through. My stomach churns as I realize that whatever force is at work here, it knows me and it wants me to know it too. The journal ends abruptly, leaving the last page blank and empty. I shiver again, unable to shake off the feeling of being watched. The radio continues its mournful tune, an unwelcome reminder of my isolation in this subterranean labyrinth. I trudge forward, the water growing deeper with every step until it reaches my knees. Panic begins to set in as I realize there's no way out. I'm trapped down here, surrounded by darkness and bone-chilling cold. But then a glimmer of hope. Up ahead, I see a faint light flickering on the wall. As I draw closer, it resolves into an ancient sconce, its flame dancing merrily despite the damp surroundings. And there, etched into the stone beside it, are 3 words that send ice through my veins. Laces les entra. Let them in. I stare at those words for what feels like an eternity, my mind racing to make sense of their meaning. But before I can come up with any conclusions, a sudden gust of wind extinguishes the sconce's flame, plunging me back into darkness. The radio falls silent, leaving only the sound of water dripping in the distance. And then, clear as day, I hear it, a child's voice whispering those same 3 words, Laces les entra. I whirl around, shining my flashlight into every shadowy corner, but there's nothing there, just more damp stone and bone-white skulls staring blankly back at me. My heart pounds in my chest, threatening to break free from its constraints as I stumble back towards the sconce, desperate for any source of light or comfort. But when I reach the spot where the sconce once stood, there's nothing left but cold stone and a lingering sense of unease. The child's voice echoes through the tunnels, its whispered words growing fainter with each repetition. Laces les entra, laces les entra. I stand there for what feels like an eternity, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I try to process everything that's happened. Somehow, against all reason and logic, I know that this horror is generational, that the family who built these catacombs invited it in, and now it has chosen me as its next host. I am not alone down here. They are with me, watching from the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. And no matter how far I run or how deep I hide, there's no escaping the darkness that has claimed me as its own. A single drop of water lands on my helmet with a soft plunk, breaking the silence and serving as a chilling reminder of the inescapable truth. I am trapped, both physically and metaphorically, in this nightmare from which there is no awakening. And so I continue my descent into darkness, knowing that it will consume me just as surely as it has consumed everything else that dares to venture beneath the city of light. For now I am its prisoner, forever bound to these flooded catacombs and the horrors that lurk within their depths. As I stumble forward, swallowed by the darkness, one thought echoes through my mind: this is not an ending, it's only the beginning. And when the last page of my own story has been written, I know deep in my bones that the final word will be the same as it was for those who came before me. Laces les entra. The Isle of Frozen Shadows. I arrived on the island at dusk, a lighthouse warning me of the dangerous rocks with its rhythmic pulse of light. I was greeted by Mr. and Mrs. Worthington, the caretakers, who seemed as old as the island itself. Their gnarled faces and hushed voices warned me of things to come, but I paid it no mind. After a long journey from New York, all I wanted was rest. The mansion stood silent and dark, save for one window glowing with warm light. The library, my workplace for the next week. My breath caught in my throat as I entered, witnessing walls filled with books that held countless stories waiting to be discovered. A fire crackled in the hearth, filling the room with warmth against the chill of early autumn. As I began cataloging, I found a journal tucked between 2 large volumes on maritime history. Its pages described events happening in real time. My heart raced as I read about my arrival and the strange occurrences witnessed by the writer, who claimed to be trapped here just like me. Night fell, bringing with it an unnatural stillness broken only by the distant crashing waves. As I reached for another book, I noticed all clocks and watches had stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m. A chill crept up my spine, despite my earlier resolve not to succumb to fear. The next day I tried to dismiss the previous night's events as mere coincidence. But then none of the animals would enter the music room, not even Mrs. Worthington's cat, Tabitha. Not one to believe in ghosts, I decided to spend the night there, determined to find a rational explanation. Despite my skepticism, every creaking floorboard and whispering wind outside sent shivers down my spine. Yet nothing prepared me for what followed. As the clock struck 3:17 a.m., a single note echoed through the mansion. A haunting melody played by an unseen hand, filling the air with chills. It was the swan from Camille Saint-Saëns' Le Carnaval des Animaux, a piece that had always given me goosebumps. Just as suddenly as it started, the music ceased. I waited for hours, but sleep eluded me. When dawn broke, I ventured into the other rooms, hoping to find the source of the mysterious performance. Instead, I discovered something far more terrifying. A collection of rare books on cosmic horrors and extraterrestrial beings, all bearing book plates from famous collectors who had mysteriously disappeared. A dreadful realization dawned upon me. Each story in those books described entities not as monsters, but as guardians warning us about threats beyond our comprehension. They weren't threatening, they were protecting us. But from what? And why did they choose to communicate using music? My thoughts were interrupted by another ethereal rendition of the swan, this time louder and clearer. It was then I noticed the grandfather clock had started working again, its pendulum swinging back and forth as if keeping time with the cosmic being's heartbeat. As I stood there, bathed in moonlight filtering through the stained glass window, I realized the true horror of my situation. Far from being threatened, I was being warned, but about what, and would I heed this otherworldly warning in time? Approx. 2,800 words. Suddenly everything fell silent, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The last note of the swan faded away, leaving behind a void filled with anticipation. As if on cue, the clouds parted, revealing a full moon casting an eerie glow over the island. In that moment I understood. This wasn't about me or the Worthingtons. We were merely bystanders caught in a cosmic dance older than humanity itself. A dance of warning and protection played out through music and time. With renewed determination, I decided to decode the entity's message. If I could understand why it was warning us, perhaps I could help prevent whatever catastrophe it foretold. Days turned into nights and weeks as I immersed myself in the cryptic language of cosmic horrors and ancient musical notations. One evening, while examining the grandfather clock, I noticed something peculiar. Its hands were positioned at 3:17, the exact time when the entity communicated through music. Could this be a clue? Driven by curiosity, I adjusted the clock's hands to match the current time and waited. As the clock struck 3:17 a.m., the melody began anew, but this time it was different. The notes seemed familiar yet alien, like fragments of forgotten dreams. As they resonated within the mansion, I felt a strange connection forming between the music, the entity, and myself. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the music stopped. A single image lingered in my mind, a swirling vortex engulfing the island. An impending doom, or was it a call for help? I couldn't tell. All I knew was that I had to find a way to decipher this cosmic riddle before it was too late. Days turned into nights and nights into days as I worked tirelessly on decoding the entity's message. My meals became irregular, often forgotten in the face of my relentless pursuit. Mrs. Worthington would occasionally knock at my door with a tray of food, her worried eyes reflecting the same creeping dread that had taken hold of me. One day, while poring over an ancient tome on extraterrestrial beings, I stumbled upon a passage describing a symbiotic relationship between cosmic entities and human consciousness. They communicated through sounds and symbols, often using music as a medium. This revelation sent chills down my spine. Could the entity be trying to establish such a connection with me? That night, the melody returned, stronger than ever. It filled every corner of the mansion, wrapping around me like a spectral shroud. As I listened, I allowed my mind to drift, surrendering control to the cosmic force. Images flooded my consciousness, visions of distant galaxies, swirling vortexes, and looming threats beyond human comprehension. Among them, one stood out, a hand reaching out from the chaos, offering salvation. The realization hit me like a wave. The entity wasn't threatening us, it was warning us, pleading for help. But from what? And how could I possibly make a difference against such cosmic forces? As these questions swirled in my mind, the music faded away, leaving behind an unsettling silence. The following days were consumed by frantic research and desperate attempts to understand the entity's message. Each night as the clock struck 3:17, I listened to the melody, allowing it to guide me through labyrinthine texts on cosmic horrors and extraterrestrial beings. Then one night everything changed. As the final note of the swan echoed through the mansion, a sudden realization dawned upon me. The entity wasn't just warning us, it was showing us a way out, a path to safety amidst the impending doom. Emboldened by this discovery, I spent the remaining nights working on a plan. Using my knowledge of the entity's language and the clues hidden within its melody, I prepared a makeshift beacon designed to attract the entity's attention. If my theory was correct, it would lead the entity to guide us to safety. Finally, the fateful night arrived. As the clock struck 3:17, I activated the beacon and waited. Minutes turned into hours as I sat there, holding my breath. Just when hope seemed lost, a familiar melody filled the air. This time, however, it felt different, more urgent, more potent. Following the entity's lead, I navigated through the dark corridors of the mansion, guided by its hauntingly beautiful tune. Each step brought me closer to the truth until finally, under the moonlit sky, I stood before a sight that defied description. A portal, shimmering with otherworldly energy, stood open on the beach. Beyond it lay a realm untouched by human eyes, a realm of stars and cosmic wonders. And there, amidst the swirling chaos, floated an entity, its form shifting and changing in response to the melody playing from my device. With every note, the vortex shifted, drawing nearer to the island. Its once menacing appearance now seemed inviting, welcoming even. It was then I realized the depth of the entity's sacrifice. Trapped between realms, it used its power to warn us, hoping someone would understand and help. As dawn approached, the entity beckoned me towards the portal. Fear gave way to curiosity, then wonder. With a deep breath, I stepped into the unknown, leaving behind the world I knew for a realm beyond human understanding. And so, under the watchful eye of the lighthouse, I embarked on a journey beyond this world. Guided by an ancient melody and driven by a desire to understand, I embraced the unknown, forever changed by the cosmic dance that began with a single note played at 3:17 a.m. Titled The Last Laugh of Chernobyl, I never intended to be a part of the documentary crew. I was only there to provide medical assistance if needed. Yet here I was in the heart of the abandoned theme park within the Chernobyl exclusion zone, enveloped by an overwhelming sense of wrongness that permeated the air. The once vibrant and bustling amusement park now lay dormant, a haunting testament to the disaster that had driven everyone away decades ago. The rusty Ferris wheel loomed above us like a skeletal giant, its circular frame echoing with the whispers of laughter long since faded. A chill ran through me as I adjusted the medical kit on my shoulder, the cold metal of the stethoscope digging into my skin. The wind howled through the deserted structures, carrying with it an alien eeriness that pervaded every corner of the forsaken park. I was in the midst of setting up a first aid station when I heard it, a faint sound, like a child's laughter carried by the wind. A shiver ran down my spine, but I dismissed it as the product of an overactive imagination. After all, I was in the most haunted place on Earth. A little auditory hallucination was to be expected. My rationalization was short-lived, however, when the recording device at the center of our shoot began to play. It was my voice, or rather, it would be my voice 3 hours into the future. The words were mundane, but the realization sent a chill through me. We were not alone. The second anomaly struck as I was examining an abandoned carousel. My foot brushed against something soft, and I looked down to find a teddy bear lying on the ground. Its once cheerful eyes now held a haunting emptiness that sent another shiver down my spine. I picked it up, half expecting it to come alive, but it remained lifeless in my hands. For a moment I felt relief. Perhaps it was nothing more than a leftover toy from the park's past. But then I heard it again, that same child's laughter, clearer this time, as if mocking my futile attempts to explain away the unexplainable. My heart pounded in my chest, and every fiber of my being screamed at me to run. Suddenly, a gust of wind sent a cloud of dust into my face, and I stumbled back, coughing and wiping the grit from my eyes. When I opened them again, I found myself lying on the ground outside the park, mud caked on my shoes. I had no memory of leaving the safety of the abandoned buildings or how long I had been unconscious. Disoriented and frightened, I staggered back to the first aid station, my mind racing with questions. Had it all been a dream? A hallucination brought on by stress and exhaustion. The answers eluded me, but one thing was certain: something dark and malevolent lurked within this forsaken place. The discovery that reframed everything came in the form of an old photograph, yellowed with age and curled at the edges. It depicted a group of children, their faces filled with joy as they played on the very same carousel where I had found the teddy bear. The date scrawled on the back read 1985, 2 years before the disaster. As I stared at the smiling faces, it hit me: this place wasn't haunted by malevolent spirits or vengeful ghosts. It was haunted by the laughter and joy of its past, twisted and corrupted by the horrors that had befallen it. The entity that stalked the abandoned halls of the theme park wasn't evil. It was a perversion of something once pure and good, tainted by human cruelty and tragedy. The realization sent a shiver down my spine, but there was no time to dwell on it. As I turned to rejoin the documentary crew, I caught sight of something that stole my breath away: a little girl, dressed in clothes from the 1980s, standing atop the rusty Ferris wheel. She looked down at me and grinned, her eyes hollow and lifeless. A single tear rolled down my cheek as I beheld her, the last remnant of something good, forever trapped within the confines of this hellish place. And then she let out a laugh, a sound both heartrending and haunting, that echoed through the abandoned park like a mournful epitaph to all that had been lost. As I stared at her, time seemed to slow, and I realized that I was no longer listening to my own voice on the recording device. Instead, it played back the laughter of the child, the same laughter that had haunted me since the moment I stepped foot in this cursed place. In that instant, I understood the true horror of Chernobyl's abandoned theme park, not the supernatural terrors that stalked its shadows, but the knowledge that the laughter and joy of its past could never be reclaimed. The final image burned into my mind: a little girl, forever trapped in time, her laughter echoing through eternity like a mournful lullaby to a world that had forgotten how to laugh. A house in the borders. I've always found solace in old houses, their silent witness to lives long past. But this Georgian manor in the Scottish borders is different. It isn't merely old, it's exhausted, as if the very land beneath it has been bled dry. My task seems straightforward: conduct an estate survey for insurance purposes. A formality, really, given that no one has lived here since the late 70s. Yet I can't shake off a sense of unease. Perhaps it's because the building's shadow falls in the wrong direction at noon, or maybe because of the faint recurring smell of burning hair that lingers without any discernible source. As I step into the main hall, the coldness isn't just from the outside chill. It feels like an icy hand brushing against my spine, but I dismiss it as imagination. The house is filled with antique furniture, each piece shrouded in white sheets, creating a sea of spectral figures standing sentinel over forgotten memories. The first anomaly comes when I move to the drawing room. A single pane in the sash window is warm to touch, unusual for a supposedly empty building. I rationalize it as residual heat from the day's sun, even though the rest of the room feels colder than the Arctic winter. A second anomaly occurs upstairs. In what was once a nursery, I find a rocking horse swaying gently, despite there being no draft or vibration nearby. Its eyes seem to follow me as I approach, and I swear I hear a soft giggle, a child's voice heard once amidst the eerie silence that has engulfed this place for decades. Relief washes over me when everything returns to normal. However, this respite is short-lived. As I descend the grand staircase, my foot lands on a wet step. Rainwater, impossible. The roof hasn't leaked, there are no signs of dampness anywhere else. Yet here it is, a single soaked step in an otherwise dry mansion. I stumble upon a discovery that reframes everything I thought I understood about this house. Hidden behind a locked door in the basement, I find a room filled with medical supplies, syringes, bandages, antiseptics, all neatly arranged as if waiting for use. And at the center of it all, a diary belonging to one of the former residents, detailing failed attempts to cure an unnamed illness. Title: The Gold Rush echoes. I arrive at the abandoned gold rush town of Chilkoot, nestled deep within the Canadian Yukon wilderness, under the guise of a historical survey for the local government. The truth is, I crave solitude and quietude in the wake of my personal loss. I've been granted extended compassionate leave from my nursing job to heal, or at least to come to terms with my new reality. The town greets me with an oppressive silence that feels almost alive. The air temperature hovers just above freezing, but the wind chill makes it unbearable as I step out of the vehicle. My breath condenses in front of my face, fogging up my glasses. The vast wilderness stretches out before me, punctuated only by dilapidated buildings and snow-laden trees. As I walk towards the first structure, a derelict saloon, something within echoes a child's laughter. Startled, I spin around but find nothing. I dismiss it as residual sound from my own actions, a mere trick of the wind playing through the eaves. My rationalization provides little comfort, however, and this sensation of unease lingers long after I enter the building. The saloon's interior is cold and stale, filled with dust-covered tables and chairs. In the corner, an old piano stands silent, its keys yellowed by time. It's here that I hear it again, a voice, muffled but distinct, singing off-key. A chill crawls up my spine as I realize the voice is mimicking speech perfectly, yet slightly misjudging emotional register, something like a recording played at an incorrect speed. I follow the sound into another room where rows upon rows of books line the walls. They're uniformly old and worn, their pages brittle from age. Upon closer inspection, I notice that several books have had their pages removed with methodical precision, not torn or cut, but cleanly excised, leaving behind neat stacks of text-free bindings. As I investigate further, the voice grows louder. This time it seems to emanate from a section of wall bereft of books. Intrigued, I run my fingers over the rough wooden surface until they brush against something hard beneath layers of dirt and grime, a stone slab. With effort, I pry it loose, revealing a hidden chamber within the wall. Inside rests a small leather-bound journal, its cover engraved with intricate patterns. My name, etched into the front, stares back at me in familiar handwriting. How could this be? Fear grips me as I flip through the pages, each entry detailing events that haven't yet occurred. The voice falls silent just as I reach an especially harrowing passage. The sudden quiet feels ominous, and I can't shake off the feeling of being watched. I decide to document my findings, hoping to make sense of this uncanny occurrence. Yet when I pull out my camera, its screen remains blank no matter how many times I press the power button. My phone follows suit, draining its battery in mere seconds. I'm not alone here. Something malevolent dwells within these walls, feeding off past tragedies and future fears. Panic surges through me as I consider the implications. This force knows me, seeks me out. And then, written on the last page of the journal, I find a chilling message. Welcome home, dear host. The realization hits me like an avalanche. I am not merely observing history here, I'm living it. This town carries a generational curse, passed down from family member to family member until it reaches me. The voices, the removed pages, even my own name carved into stone, they all serve as grim reminders of what awaits me. I try to leave, but every path out of Chilkoot leads back to its heart. Even more disconcerting, time seems distorted within the town limits. Night falls abruptly, plunging everything into darkness. Stranded and lost, I stumble upon an old cabin, half buried under snow. Inside, another surprise awaits, a mirror reflecting not my own face but that of my late grandmother. Her eyes are filled with dread, silently pleading for help she never received. A sense of despair overwhelms me as I understand her role in perpetuating the curse. Unable to bear the sight, I turn away, only to find myself staring at my grandfather's face in an old photograph hanging on the wall. This cabin is a shrine to my ancestors, each artifact telling a story of suffering and despair. Among them, I discover a collection of letters penned by previous hosts of the curse. Their words paint a haunting picture of lives consumed by fear and loneliness, bound eternally to this desolate place. The voices return, whispering tales of sorrow and loss. They're louder now, almost deafening, yet their emotional register remains skewed, creating a discordant symphony of despair. I cover my ears, but the sound persists, echoing inside my skull. Just when I think things can't get any worse, something grabs my ankle. I look down and see a pair of small, dirty hands emerging from beneath the wooden floorboards, clawing desperately at the gaps between planks. The fingers belong to children, or rather, ghostly remnants thereof. They drag me under, pulling me into the cold embrace of the earth. Dirt fills my mouth and nose, choking me as I struggle to break free, but there's no escape. Here, beneath layers of frozen ground, lies the true horror of Chilkoot, a family graveyard, each tombstone bearing names identical to mine. As life escapes me, I realize the truth. I am not merely a victim of circumstance. I am part of this horrific legacy, destined to become both perpetrator and prisoner of this never-ending cycle of pain. And so, with my last breath, I join the chorus of voices, adding my own echoes to the gold rush town that stole my life. I entered the Welsh slate mine, its damp air clinging to my skin. I'd been hired as a forensic accountant to investigate missing funds. This abandoned mine was just one stop on my search for answers. My flashlight cast eerie shadows on the walls, revealing puddles and discarded tools. Photographs from the 1950s lay scattered about black and white images of miners, their faces grimy but happy. In one photo, I saw someone who looked exactly like me, down to the mole near my left eye. It was unnerving, but I shrugged it off as a strange coincidence. The temperature dropped suddenly, stealing my breath away. An abrupt 15 degrees C decrease in a sealed space with no ventilation or discernible cold source. Impossible. Yet here I was, shivering despite my thick jacket. A rhythmic tickling sound echoed through the cavernous room. A pocket watch lay beside the photograph of me, its hands frozen at 3:17 a.m. All clocks and watches in the vicinity showed the same time, as if standing still in defiance of natural laws. As I ventured deeper into the mine, the air grew colder, and the rhythmic tickling turned into a haunting melody. Dance Macabre by Camille Saint-Saëns echoed around me, although there was no device playing it. The music seemed to emanate from the very stones themselves, an eerie reminder of my isolation. I stumbled upon another room, its entrance half hidden behind a pile of fallen rocks. Here, the temperature dropped even further, making my teeth chatter uncontrollably. I couldn't understand how this could be happening. In the center of the room sat an antique desk with papers strewn haphazardly across it. Atop the mess lay a single red rose, its petals slowly wilting despite the absence of warmth. Suddenly, I noticed something peculiar about the photographs. They weren't mere portraits, they depicted scenes within the mine captured decades ago. And there I was, standing in each scene looking exactly as I did now. It was then that dread crept in, replacing rationalization with bone-deep terror. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized I wasn't alone. The photographs proved someone else had seen me, or rather, someone who looked just like me. But who and why? No answers presented themselves, only more questions and a growing sense of unease. The cold seeped into my bones, numbing my fingers and toes. My watch read 3:17 a.m., matching every other timepiece in the mine. I tried to leave, but an unseen force seemed to hold me back, compelling me to confront the truth lurking in the darkness. My flashlight flickered, casting long shadows that danced wildly on the walls. Shapes moved within those shadows, eliciting panic, but when I turned towards them they vanished, leaving only echoes of fear behind. Despite the cold, sweat dripped down my brow, stinging my eyes. Fear gnawed at me, tearing away logic and reason. Every instinct screamed for me to run, yet my feet remained rooted to the spot. Then I saw it, a door where none had existed before. It stood slightly ajar, revealing a faint light beyond. With trembling hands, I pushed open the door and stepped through. A vast chamber greeted me, its ceiling lost in darkness. In the center, a single chair sat atop a circular platform. On the wall behind it, an enormous clock ticked away the seconds, its pendulum swinging ominously. The music swelled around me, filling the space with haunting beauty. Drawn towards the chair, I sat down, feeling an inexplicable connection to it. As I did, the room began to spin, and a blinding light filled my vision. When my sight returned, I found myself standing outside the mine, looking back at the entrance. Panic surged as I realized what had happened. Time had moved forward while I remained trapped within the confines of the clock. But how, why, and most importantly, how could I escape? The wind howled around me, carrying with it a chilling whisper, "You failed the test." The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, leaving me disoriented and terrified. With every passing second, the truth became clearer. This wasn't just about finding missing funds, it was something far more sinister. I was being tested by whom I didn't know, but one thing was certain: I had failed. The clock tower struck 4, its chime echoing through the silent night. As it did, the entrance to the mine crumbled, sealing off any escape route. I stood there, alone and trapped, watching as the last remnants of daylight disappeared beyond the horizon. And then all was quiet. The music ceased, leaving only silence behind. A single image remained etched in my mind, the face from the photograph, staring back at me with cold, unblinking eyes. And I knew then that I was not alone, nor had I ever been. Titled "The Last Watch," I stand at the edge of a rocky cliff, gazing out at the vast expanse of the North Atlantic. The wind howls around me, tearing at my clothes and stealing my breath away. I am here to film a documentary on the local wildlife, but for now I am captivated by the raw power of the sea. Somewhere out there in that cold, unforgiving darkness lies my destiny. The lighthouse behind me is an old iron giant, creaking and groaning as it withstands the ceaseless onslaught of the wind. I feel a strange kinship with this place. We are both keepers of sorts, guardians against the unknown. I make my way up the winding staircase to the very top, where the light itself resides. The view is breathtaking, and for a moment I am at peace. As I begin to set up my equipment, I notice something odd, a faint, rhythmic tapping coming from within the walls. It follows me as I move around the room, ceasing only when I stand still. I dismiss it as the natural creaking of an old building and return to my work. Days turn into nights and my isolation deepens. The tapping in the walls continues, growing louder and more insistent. It's as if something is trying to communicate with me, to share a secret hidden within these stone walls. I find myself drawn to it, unable to focus on anything else. One day, while exploring the lighthouse, I discover that someone has been systematically removing pages from every book in the place. The strange thing is, only the sections pertaining to local folklore and superstitions have been torn out. It's unnerving, but I can't bring myself to leave. Instead, I find myself drawn further into the mystery of this place. As I investigate, I stumble upon an old family tree, its roots stretching back generations. At the base of the tree, a single name stands out: mine. The realization sends a shiver down my spine, but it also brings with it a sense of belonging, as if I have been invited to join this secret legacy. The days grow shorter, and the tapping in the walls becomes a constant companion. My dreams are plagued by haunting images of ghostly figures and whispering voices, urging me to embrace my destiny. The line between reality and nightmare blurs, and I begin to question my own sanity. One day, as I stand at the edge of the cliff, the sun casting a golden glow upon the churning waters below, I notice something strange. The building's shadow falls in the wrong direction, a dark, misshapen silhouette that seems to defy the laws of nature. It's then that I understand. The horror here is not some malevolent force or vengeful spirit. It is the lighthouse itself, bound by an ancient curse that passes from generation to generation. I am its next host, the latest in a long line of keepers who have succumbed to its dark embrace. As I stand there, the wind howling around me, I realize that my fate is sealed. There is no escape, no running from this ancient evil. All I can do is accept it and hope that somehow I can find a way to break the cycle. As the days pass, I begin to hear music, faint at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. It's a haunting melody filled with sorrow and longing, a song that seems to speak directly to my soul. The piece is called The Lighthouse's Requiem, an old Gaelic lament passed down through generations of keepers. I feel a strange kinship with the music, as if it holds the key to understanding my place in this dark legacy. I begin to research its origins, delving deep into the history of the lighthouse and the families who have tended it. With each new piece of information, I am drawn further into the web of secrets and lies that bind me to this place. One night, as I stand at the edge of the cliff, the wind whipping around me, I hear a voice, soft and whispering, urging me to follow it. I can't resist the call, and I find myself drawn deeper into the lighthouse than ever before. The music grows louder still, filling my entire being with its haunting beauty. I follow the sound down into the bowels of the lighthouse, where I discover a hidden chamber, sealed for generations. Inside, I find an ancient tome, bound in human skin and filled with dark incantations and forbidden knowledge. The book is a grimoire passed down through the generations of keepers, each one adding their own dark secrets to its pages. As I read through the book, I begin to understand the true nature of the curse that binds me to this place. It is not simply a matter of fate or destiny. It is a living entity, a malevolent force that feeds on fear and despair. The tapping in the walls, the removed pages from the books, even the misaligned shadow at noon are all manifestations of its power, signs of its insatiable hunger. With this newfound knowledge, I realize that I have but one choice: to confront the entity and break the curse once and for all. I gather every ounce of courage I possess and descend into the depths of the lighthouse, armed with nothing but my wits and the grimoire. The chamber is cold and dark, a void that seems to swallow all light and sound. As I enter, the music stops, leaving only an eerie silence in its wake. The tapping in the walls grows louder still, a cacophony of whispers and scratching claws that seem to surround me on all sides. I open the grimoire and begin to read aloud, my voice trembling with fear. The words are ancient and dark, filled with power that seems almost alive. As I speak, the shadows around me twist and writhe, as if trying to escape their own bonds. The entity's rage is palpable, a living force that threatens to consume me whole. But I press on, my voice growing stronger as I read the words of power. The tapping in the walls fades, replaced by an unearthly silence that seems to stretch on for an eternity. And then, suddenly, it's over. The shadows recede, and the tapping ceases completely. A single ray of light pierces the darkness, illuminating a hidden passage leading out of the chamber. I follow it, my heart pounding in my chest, until I emerge into the daylight, gasping for breath. I have done it. I have broken the curse and freed myself from the lighthouse's dark embrace. But as I stand there, the wind howling around me, I can't help but feel a twinge of sadness. This place has been my home, my sanctuary for so long, and now I must leave it behind. I pack my belongings and make my way down the winding staircase one last time, the sound of the lighthouse's requiem echoing in my ears. I know that I will never hear that melancholy tune again, but its haunting beauty will remain with me forever. As I walk away from the lighthouse, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. My destiny has been fulfilled, and I am free at last. But as I look back one final time, I see the building's shadow fall in the wrong direction once more, a dark reminder that some evils can never truly be vanquished. And with that image burned into my mind, I turn away from the lighthouse and walk towards the horizon, leaving behind the darkness and embracing the unknown. In the waning light of an autumn day, I had never been to Scotland before, nor any place quite so remote. The Georgian manor stood alone amidst rolling hills and heather, its facade crumbling, wrapped in a melancholy silence that seemed to whisper of forgotten tales. A solitary crow perched on the gnarled branch of a nearby tree, cawing mournfully as if lamenting the passage of time. The manor was my refuge, a respite from the turmoil of a recent divorce and the confines of city life. As I stepped inside, the scent of damp stone and mildew greeted me, accompanied by something peculiar, a faint recurring smell of burning hair with no apparent source. It seemed an ominous prelude to my stay, yet I dismissed it as the quirk of an old building, eager to lose myself in its labyrinthine corridors and vast library, filled with centuries-old tomes just waiting to share their secrets. My survey of the estate began on the ground floor, where high ceilings and tall windows drenched the space in feeble autumn light. The room seemed larger than it should be, an illusion created by the disorientating effect of its many doors. I consulted my memorized floor plan, a faithful representation of each room's dimensions and layout, yet found myself unable to reconcile it with this disconcerting reality. After several hours of exploration, I encountered the first anomaly, a small room hidden behind an ornate tapestry. The space should not have existed. My floor plan showed only a solid wall. A chill ran through me, but I chalked it up to the eccentricities of antiquated architecture and moved on. Days turned into weeks, and each day brought new discoveries, doors that led nowhere, corridors that looped back upon themselves, and always the faint scent of burning hair lingered in the air, a phantom presence impossible to trace. One evening, as I prepared dinner, I heard it, a child's voice, clear and lonely, echoing through the halls. It was an apparition from another time, a whisper of lives long past. My heart raced at the sound, but finding no one in sight or hiding, I returned to my solitary meal, the eerie laughter of the unseen child lingering behind like an unwelcome guest. The following morning, I stumbled upon a hidden chamber while investigating an oddly cold spot in the library. Within this secret room, amidst stacks of moldy books and dust-covered artifacts, lay a series of journals belonging to various inhabitants of the manor throughout history. Each entry spoke of similar experiences, strange smells, disorientating layouts, and ghostly voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Yet one voice stood out amongst the rest, a kindly matriarch who described an entity she referred to as the last whisper of something good. She wrote of its soothing tones and comforting presence, but beneath her words lurked a sense of unease, an undercurrent of revulsion that even she could not fully hide. As I delved deeper into the journals, the truth began to reveal itself. This entity had once been bound to the manor by its original owner, a cruel and twisted man who sought to harness its power for his own selfish desires. However, over time he corrupted it, twisting it into a shadow of its former self, forever trapped within the confines of the estate, whispering false comforts and preying on the weary souls who dared to wander its halls. In that moment, I realized the horror that had befallen me, the disorientating layout, the inexplicable sounds, even the faint smell of burning hair, were all manifestations of this entity's presence, a malevolent force birthed from human cruelty and despair. I gathered the journals, determined to uncover a way to free the entity from its torment, only to discover that each solution proposed was met with failure or worse. The manor itself seemed alive, shifting and changing in response to my efforts, ensuring that I remained trapped within its grasp just as surely as the entity. And so I wait, caught between the relentless passage of time and the unyielding grip of this accursed place. With every passing day, the manor grows colder, its walls closing in around me like a suffocating embrace, whispering their comforts and promises of solace while I struggle against the darkness that threatens to consume me entirely. As I sit here now, penning these words by the fading light of an autumn day, I cannot help but wonder if I too have become another voice in this chorus of forgotten souls, forever trapped within the confines of this crumbling Georgian manor, bound to its twisted history and the whispers of something once good, now corrupted beyond repair. The crow still caws from its perch outside my window, a mournful reminder of the passage of time and the futility of escape. And above it all, wafting through the air like a specter, comes that faint, unmistakable scent of burning hair, a constant presence, an unending lament for what has been lost and what can never be regained. A single image lingers in my mind as I close these pages, a haunting echo of the darkness that surrounds me. the silhouette of a once noble figure, twisted and broken, forever entombed within these walls, longing for release from its torment and whispering false comforts to those who dare to trespass upon its domain. But there will be no release, not for it, nor for me. For in this place we are one and the same, remnants of something good, corrupted by human cruelty and despair, doomed to haunt these halls until the last stone tumbles into ruin and silence once again reigns supreme. Tidal echoes from the abyss. I woke up with mud caked on my shoes, a scratch stretching across my right cheek, and no memory of going outside. The last thing I remembered was poring over microscopic algal samples in the lab, but now I found myself lying on my bunk, enveloped in an unsettling fog of confusion. The oil platform hummed with mechanical rhythm, punctuated by the distant murmur of workers. Yet an eerie stillness clung to the air as if time itself had decided to take a break. A chill ran down my spine when I noticed that every clock and watch in sight was stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m., casting an unsettling pall over the platform. Deciding to investigate, I made my way through narrow corridors lined with metal grates, past whirring machinery and hissing pipes. The place reeked of oil and rust, a nauseating cocktail that coiled into my nostrils and clung to the back of my throat. Suddenly I heard footsteps echoing behind me. Turning around, expecting to find one of my crewmates, I was met with silence and solitude. Shaking it off, I resumed my trek, only for the sound to resume, deliberate, measured steps matching my own pace. My heart pounded in my chest like a frenzied drummer as I picked up speed, adrenaline surging through my veins. But no matter how fast I moved, the footsteps followed, never faltering, always there. It was then that I realized something wasn't just off-kilter, it was horribly wrong. In a desperate attempt to escape, I darted into the control room, slamming the heavy door behind me. Gasping for breath, I leaned against the cold steel surface, listening intently. The footsteps ceased abruptly, replaced by an unnerving silence that felt heavier than any sound could be. With a deep breath, I turned around, coming face to face with something far more terrifying than any ghostly apparition. On the monitors displaying live feeds from underwater cameras, inky black tendrils snaked their way up from the dark abyss, twisting and writhing grotesquely. Ignoring the bile rising in my throat, I zoomed in on the footage, revealing countless more tendrils reaching out, each pulsating with an otherworldly bioluminescence that painted the seafloor in ghostly hues. They moved with a purpose, albeit one beyond human comprehension, evoking sensations of cosmic dread usually reserved for Lovecraftian nightmares. Then amidst the cacophony of alien movements, I heard it, a voice, soft yet commanding, emanating from the speakers. It spoke in soothing tones, reassuring me of our safety and insignificance in the grand cosmic scheme. Yet beneath the comforting facade lurked something deeply wrong, an undercurrent of menace that sent chills down my spine. Suddenly all systems went haywire. Alarm lights flashed, sirens blared, and emergency alerts scrolled across screens. In a final act of defiance, the platform shook violently before plunging into darkness. And as the world around me descended into chaos, I knew I had stumbled upon something that transcended scientific understanding, a horrifying glimpse into an existence beyond our own. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. From the murky depths of the now silent speakers, mimicking voices emerged. They were familiar, yet horribly distorted, like reflections in a funhouse mirror. Each word was recognizable, but the emotional register was off, creating an uncanny valley effect that sent shivers down my spine. Unable to bear the cacophony any longer, I clamped my hands over my ears, only to realize the voices had seeped into my mind, echoing incessantly within the confines of my skull. No matter how hard I tried to shut them out, they persisted, driving me to the brink of insanity. As suddenly as it began, the auditory invasion ceased, leaving behind a deafening silence that rang louder than any noise ever could. Cautiously lowering my hands, I strained my ears, listening for even the faintest sound. But there was nothing, just an eerie calm that felt more ominous than any scream or siren could have been. With a heavy heart, I trudged through the dimly lit corridors, guided by the sickly glow of emergency lights. Each step echoed hollowly in the emptiness, punctuated by the rhythmic drip of water from leaky pipes. Every shadow seemed to conceal monstrous entities, every creak of the platform a prelude to unimaginable horrors. In my desperation for answers, I stumbled upon a sealed door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Ignoring the warning, I pushed against the heavy metal, gritting my teeth as it screeched open, revealing a hidden lab. Rows of microscopes lined tables covered in alien specimens, their forms barely recognizable under the harsh fluorescent glare. Amidst this chaotic tableau, one slide caught my attention. Under the lens, the same black tendrils from the monitors danced in a grotesque ballet. A chill ran down my spine as I read the label "Human Host," Dr. Protagonist's name. A cold fury washed over me, replacing fear with anger. How dare they experiment on me without consent? Who were these people who thought they could play God with impunity? But amidst my outrage, a horrifying revelation dawned upon me. I was the ghost, dead before the story even began. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, leaving me reeling. My mind raced, trying to piece together fragments of memories that didn't fit, moments that made sense only in retrospect. The mud on my shoes, the scratch on my face, the missing hours, they were all part of an elaborate ruse designed to keep me trapped here, ensnared in a web of cosmic horror. As I stood there, grappling with the truth, something stirred within me. A familiar sensation, yet alien in its intensity, surged through my veins. It was the same pulsating energy that coursed through those tendrils, now taking root within me. With each beat of my heart, the foreign presence grew stronger, entwining itself with my being until we became inseparable. The world around me began to warp, blurring the lines between what was real and imagined, alive and dead, me and them. And then, just as suddenly as it all started, everything went still. Even the relentless sea seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something monumental to happen. In that moment of suspended animation, I saw a single image imprinted on the insides of my eyelids, a grotesque mirror reflecting an amalgamation of man and monster, forever bound by cosmic horror. The sight haunted me, lingering long after the echoes of footsteps faded away, serving as a stark reminder of my new reality. For I was no longer merely a marine biologist studying deep-sea organisms. I had become an unwilling participant in a horrifying dance between life and death, humanity and cosmic entity, sanity and madness. As we reach the end of tonight's stories on Hauntales, it's time to let your mind drift away. Listen to the sound of the rain gently falling in the background. Let each drop calm your thoughts and ease you into a peaceful sleep. There's nothing to fear now, just the soothing rhythm of the rain. Focus on your breathing. Let your body relax and allow yourself to drift deeper into rest. Sleep peacefully, and we'll meet again tomorrow night for another story. Good night.